Okay, well, welcome everyone. I'm Elizabeth Bracey, and my co-presenter is Patty Seaton, who hopefully you can see on the screen. And I'm so honored to be presenting this story of Tanabata to you. Before we begin, I wanted to ask, is anyone in our audience Japanese or have Japanese heritage? And if you don't want to answer or wave your hand, you can put something in the chat. Has anyone been to Japan? Has anyone ever been to a Tanabata celebration?
Okay. I wonder whose I went to.
Well, I am not Japanese. I do not have any Japanese heritage, but I really love learning about other cultures. And the art center that I manage, we have a portable planetarium. And one of the things that we love about the planetarium is that it allows us to explore the cultures and festival traditions of other cultures, and many of them are rooted in astronomy. So I'll be sharing the story of Tanabata with you today, and then we will talk a little bit about some of the astronomy that goes with it. I'm going to tell you the story of Tanabata. Tanabata translates to evening of the 7th, and it is traditionally celebrated on the 7th day of the 7th lunar month of the year. So either in the chat, which Patty will be able to monitor, or if you want to scream out over Zoom, what date do you think Tanabata is celebrated?
I have a July 7th in the chat.
Okay.
7 days after the new month, usually in August. So we have a differing opinion there. Lunar calendar is hard, says Jeffney.
Okay, well, the good news is if you guessed July 7th, you are right. And if you guessed a date in August, you are also right. Many cultures use the Gregorian calendar that we are familiar with. And that would mean that the 7th day of the 7th month is July 7th. But the lunar calendar is a little bit different way of keeping time. And that puts the celebration typically on the 7th of August. And in Japan, in some of the more modern places, for example, in Tokyo, they celebrate Tanabata on July 7th or around that time. In places like Sendai province in Kyoto, that's more traditional, they celebrate it in August. And our celebrations typically are in August for that reason. So the other thing I need is I'm going to need you to participate in this presentation with me. So I want you to listen for 3 things in the story. The first one is the Emperor of Heaven, and his name is Tente. And when you hear me say Tente, I'd like you to unmute your microphone and make some kind of angry or fierce sound. So let's try that now. Tente. Most excellent. And if you could keep your responses short so that the story doesn't go too long. The second thing I want you to listen to is Hikoboshi. And Hikoboshi is the prince of our story. And when you hear his name, I'd like you to make the sound that you think would come from a cow. Let's try it. Hikoboshi. Wonderful, wonderful. And for the last one, you would just be using your hands. So I want you to put your hands up as if you were waving to someone, showing them your fingers, and then bring your thumbs together so you form a bird. And this is going to be a magpie. So when you hear me say the word magpie, I want you to make a bird for our audience. Okay, let's get started. Yokoso, welcome. I'm honored today to tell you the story of Tanabata. The first character in our story is Orahimi, the weaving princess. Orahimi was very, very good at her job of weaving and creating cloth. Everyone in the kingdom loved the cloth that she made for their clothing, and she loved her work very much. Her father, Tente, who was the emperor of heaven, wanted her to work all the time. But she was sad about that because she was also searching for a love of her own. Her father loved her very much, so he arranged for her to meet a prince named Hikoboshi, who was a cow herder. Now you might think, why would a cow herder be a prince? But it's important to know that in the Japanese culture at this time, cows were very important and were a sign of wealth and status. And so this job that he had in the kingdom was very important. And he was very good at it, and the kingdom trusted them with their cows. Hikoboshi also all the time and really loved his job, but he was also searching for a love of his own. And he lived on the other side of the Amanagawa River, or the Silvery River. When Hikoboshi and met, they were very happy. They fell in love and they got married. They wanted to spend all of their time together and they forgot about their jobs. Orahimi stopped weaving and all the cows wandered the heavens. The people of the kingdom were very unhappy because they wanted their cloth for clothing and they had trusted Hikoboshi with their cows. My father, the emperor of heaven, Orahimi's father, Tente, was also very unhappy. In fact, he was angry. He separated their two heroes and put them on opposite sides of the Amanagawa. At first, they turned back to their work because it distracted them from their sadness. But then they forgot their work and all they could think about was each other. Orahimi pleaded with her father to allow them to be reunited. Tente loved her very much, so he decreed that they could meet once a year on the 7th day of the 7th lunar month if they returned to their jobs and worked very hard. While she was working, Orahimi dreamed of her love.
My Hikoboshi, eternal love of my life, I'm dreaming of you. My Hikoboshi, eternal love of my life, I'm dreaming of you. I will do my best and weave my father's clothes, the best I can do, the best I can do. I wait the day to cross Amanagawa, till my love is true. My Hikoboshi, eternal love of my life, I'm dreaming of you. I am dreaming, so my love is true.
Finally, the day came when Hikoboshi and Orahime were to meet, and they went to the Amanagawa, but they found it was too difficult to cross. This made Orahime so sad that she began to cry and cry. Suddenly, a flock of magpies came to the rescue, and they made a bridge for them to cross over the silvery river. They were so happy. People call them the star-crossed lovers. If you look up into the sky and it is a clear night, you will see the two stars that travel across the heavens to meet at the same time every year. One of them is Hikoboshi, and the other one is Orahimi. They meet at the Amanagawa, and the magpies come and make a bridge for them to cross over and meet. But if it's raining, the magpies do not come. So all Japanese people wish for clear skies and good weather for Tanabata, so that our lovers can meet and be together. The story of Tanabata, the Star Festival, in the early days, it was just celebrated by royalty and in the imperial court. And at some point, there started a tradition of creating tanzaku, which hopefully you were able to make before today's presentation. And they hung them on these small strips of paper on bamboo, which usually lines the streets during any kind of a festival. And you can see here the symbolism. Often they're also used to write your hopes and dreams and desires. There are seven types of decorations that are used. The second one is a kinchaku, and that is usually shaped like a purse. You can see a picture of a large one there. They also make kamigoromo, which are small kimonos. And if you're looking to improve your style, that would be one that you would want to include in your celebrations. Tawami are net papers. You can see the pink one there in that picture. And these are used, these are created using a form of Japanese craft called kirigami, where you fold the paper and then cut it in a certain way to create that paper chain. The orazuru use the origami folded cranes. You see them there in the picture. Many of you might be familiar with them. They symbolize long life and good health. Kuzukago, which are trash nets. Sometimes they just use trash bags instead, but these again are created using kirigami. And I think we could all use a little bit more order and cleanliness in our lives. And then finally, the fukunegashi, and the picture on the left are ones from celebrations of Tanabata in Japan. You can see how large and ornate they are. The ones on the right are ones that we created for the festival at our art center. These are some pictures from the Franklin Park Art Center celebration. As you can see, we took parts of the traditions and incorporated them into our own festival in different ways. And we have people of all ethnicities and ages participating. We often have Japanese American families that attend that want to share the traditions with their children. These are some celebrations from Japan, so you can get an idea of what their, how beautiful and bold and amazing their celebrations are. Again, these are from our past celebrations, and we try to incorporate traditional music and crafts in our celebrations to give people opportunity to experience those very traditional cultural pieces. And then again, pictures from celebrations in Japan. So at this point of the presentation, then we focus on transitioning from the arts and culture into the astronomy. And in our planetarium, each person that comes in gets something to hold on to. And one of the things they might receive is a small votive battery operated light. And at this point, we would ask them to turn those on, and that represents the stars floating in the Amanagawa. And it also is a great transition as we go from kind of a dusk lighting into the evening dark skies of the constellations. So I think Patty is going to do a lot of the talking from this point, and I'm just going to move the slides forward. So Patty, take it away.
Thanks. I think most of you have sometime presented, or maybe you don't know, that Orahimi is represented in the sky by the star Vega, and Hikoboshi by the Altair, which we know is all part of the summer triangle, the bright 2 of the 3 bright stars in the summer triangle. So this is a great time to talk about asterisms. So the thinking questions that Elizabeth put up there are some things that she typically would ask of her audience. And she's actually done this a couple of times. I have not gotten to do it because of COVID. So I'm so thankful she had a chance to successfully run this in August. Because not a lot of people are familiar with asterism, or once you define it and you ask them what's another asterism you may know, I'm hoping that you guys will know which message they would get, which would be
Big Dipper.
Big Dipper.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping that they've recognized too. And that helps them to realize the Big Dipper. Hopefully that leads to another question like, oh, if the Big Dipper is an asterism, what's the constellation? And you could also bring in Ursa Major at that point. So I love this because Elizabeth actually took this photo from her digital sky. So this is actually what her sky looked like. And depending on what your system is, you can use whatever you have. We have intended in our program to use whatever you have. We didn't provide images for these overlays. So hopefully you're having your own overlays. If you're digital, you are. I know my optical had some overlays as well, so we could do these things. But yeah, so also we realized that the Milky Way and a really dark sky runs between those constellations, so it separates Vega and it separates Altair. So you've got your stars separated. You can talk about the Amanawa. I can't even say it right now. I sang it.
Amanagawa.
I have to sing it to say it right. Okay, what does it represent in our own night sky? A lot of people say it's a galaxy, but they have a hard time connecting that image of the Milky Way, what we see visibly, to the images of barred spirals that we've seen from the galaxy. So it's a good way to, with whatever system you have, again, we're counting on you to use your visuals of barred spirals, or if you've got a digital system, to then fly out from your own system. I know my colleague just was at a planetarium in Florida over Labor Day weekend, and she got to see the presenter do that, where they actually flew out after someone asked what is the Milky Way, but they had the constellation outlines on, so you could see the changing shapes as you're exiting the Milky Way and then showing other stars. This can get you into a talk about Edwin Hubble and his discoveries. So you can do all kinds of historical lessons as well as astronomy lessons while you're here, and then talk about the types of stars in the galaxy. This is also a really great time because if you're dealing with July, you're dealing with the Perseid meteor shower. So you can have a chance to talk again then about what that is, what meteors are. And one of the things that Elizabeth had talked about is some of the missions to study the nearby, mapping out more sections of the Milky Way and Large Magellanic Cloud. So if you want to talk about other missions, you've got the Gusto mission. But if you're talking about, I want to get to where you had a really great action. Didn't you have them rub their fingers? One of the things.
Yeah, for the meteor shower, I usually try to talk a little bit about what creates those like falling stars or meteors through the sky. And so I talk about friction, and easy way to explain it is have people rub their hands together and create that heat in their hands. And that kind of is a very simple way to bring that home. And then I tie it back to the story by explaining that the meteor shower represents the tears that Orahimi cried when she couldn't get across the Amanagawa.
Awesome. And then finally, the real lesson you can teach is what is a lunar cycle. And I like what Jeffrey Nee said at the very beginning, that's hard. So it can be hard, but you could simply turn it into depending on who your audience is, to a simple moon phase lesson and talk about, but that gets you into the lunar cycle and have them realize if they're looking at a calendar, such as the one that's on the right-hand part of the screen there, that you have, it's not one full calendar month, that there's a different cycle. So that's a really great way to talk about those two different things. And the higher your audience, the more you can talk about it. But hopefully you all are familiar with that. But it's keeping time with the lunar calendar is something lots of different cultures did. So that's a really important thing to say, that to help them, especially for me, for students, to recognize that even calendars, keeping time is different for different cultures, which is a really important thing. So we usually suggest that you follow it up with a tour of the nighttime sky, and however you want to do that, or whatever kind of time you have. But I mean, I don't know if you want me to start this, Elizabeth, or you, but this kind of started when PPA a couple of years ago said, hey, we've got this grant. And I had already been talking with Elizabeth because it started when she invited me to her Tanabata festival. So Trixie and I went, and we had so much fun doing those activities. And then she said, well, I want to do a planetarium show. So we talked about developing a script. And I just appreciated how much work that you did, Elizabeth, because why don't you share about how you talked, how we make sure that we're handling the dealing with someone else's culture correctly.
Sure. So I've had several conversations with people of Japanese heritage and asked them their feeling about us presenting something so traditional like this, and worried about, appropriation. Certainly that's never something that would be our intent. And they said it's very simple, just present yourself as you. You can dress in a kimono, you can, talk about the traditions and practice the different crafts and all of those things as part of your celebration. Just don't dress up and try to make yourself look Japanese. That's what is offensive. Be yourself and present yourself as who you are and your interest in the culture. And so that's what we've been doing. And it really, the thing that fascinates me is that every time we present this program, we have people of all ages and all ethnicities coming together, and they all have some kind of interest that ties them together, whether they had experiences in Japan or they're interested in the story related to astronomy, whatever it is. And it's nice to have people find a common connection in that way. And I just wanted to share the credits. We used the grant money that we received from the Pacific Planetarium Association to pay the two artists. So we had a music composition college student who created the music, and an artist, a college student who created the original artwork. So.
We also asked, a lot of you know Kaoru Kimura, the current IPS president, and we asked her to review the script, and she liked it. And she also said the same thing that Elizabeth had found, that please dress up in a kimono. They actually like that and encourage that, which is great because some cultures, that's not what you do. And I just wanted to share something very quickly, because we do have this in a Word document that she put together that starts out with some of the suggestions that we have for pre-program discussions, and some of the ways that you can put materials and provide them for your interactive planetarium program, materials for the crafts that you might want to do. And then we just threw what she did into a script format. So, the visuals that we expected, the actions and the narrative. So it's all here, including the some suggestions for the astronomy parts. We just label them basically part 1, part 2, and encourage. She did say that she used the votive candles to transition. Another thought we had were glow sticks, because that's another cheap thing you can get from the dollar store. So we're not asking you to break the bank, but we know that Amazon sells, like, you can get a whole carton of those things for pretty cheap. And they last long enough for your show. So I know sometimes you feel like you get what you pay for, but The only problem with the glow sticks is they're a little harder to put out or turn off when you want them to be turned off. So, but it's really a beautiful thing. So, so I'll stop sharing. So these are available. The music's available. The artwork. We got most of it back from our artist. She had promised us a few more pieces that we're hoping that we're still going to be able to get from her. But enough things that you can put together however you want, if you want to use the way that we have it, or just, these are our suggestions. And it's so interactive. And I love working with Elizabeth because she's done some awesome research and I didn't have to. She already did it. It was lots of fun. And just for my own self, how I do it in Planetarium is that I tend to, for all of my public shows, I had traditionally done pre-visit activities. So before we go into Planetarium, we do some of the similar things that she did out on the guard. So we could do any of those suggestions for activities and then take it in the Planetarium and go from there. So, and then there's lots of hints for interactivity for like you all had fun mooing, which was great. So mooing.
Yes, very good participation. Thank you all. You're good sports. When we did this this summer in the Planetarium, we gave each person a shadow puppet. And so they listened for those words, whether it was stars or the main characters or cows or magpies, and they put those up to create shadows in the Planetarium. So it's not a new concept, but it was new for them. And I think that it really helped them internalize the story. So then when we started talking about the astronomy, they were a little bit more clued in because they really had that connection back to the traditional story. So any questions or thoughts or comments?
There's some nice comments in the chat that I think you should hear, Elizabeth, about how they really love the interaction that goes with the specific names. One that says, I love this. There's so many great things going on. So thanks for the kudos, folks. That's what we hope, that it's interactive. Oh, how do you make a shadow in the Planetarium? Someone asked. So
what we had, so we have a portable dome with the projector and everything in the center of the space. And so we had dowels with just cut out shapes that I literally taped to the end of the dowel and gave them out as people were coming in. And then when that particular part came on, you just hold it up as high as you can. Some of the kids stood up, and we had the lighting kind of, I think it was like maybe dusk. So it wasn't quite bright in the Planetarium, but it was bright enough that they could see without tripping over each other, and it still made shadows. And then when we transitioned, it was nice to have those little votive lights.
Yeah, Elizabeth and Patty, Mark Breen, one of the things that happened to me, one of my favorite Planetarium experiences many years ago, I had an ESL, English as a Second Language group in there, and we had, I simply asked the audience at some point, said, do you have any favorite stories from your country? And so this young girl from China stood up, and she told me the same story. But in China, this is known as Kishi, I believe.
Yes, right.
Which she knew and Nui Long. And so I actually know the story from that point of view. But the interesting thing that happened during the show was, as she's telling the story, there's this giggling going on. And I had no idea what it was. And so there was a translator in the room. There were two young girls from Japan, and they were giggling because they had the same story.
Oh, that's
so
great.
It was just this amazing, moment. Never will forget that. So, but I often include that as part of my typical summer show. Just the whole story. It fits in nicely with recognizing the Summer Triangle, Milky Way, and so forth. So I tell that story a lot.
I like it because it doesn't involve death or mutilation or any of the other stories in the Greek mythology. So it's kind of a nice, happy story. So it's easy to share for all ages.
It's a love story. I had someone suggest that it's one of their typical Valentine's Day program stories, and that's excellent. That I would highly recommend it.
Well, I just hope that you get I mean, obviously my background is in the arts and not in astronomy. So I hope that you take away from this maybe the concept of adding some arts into some of your planetarium programming, whether it's a take-home activity or something like that. Something as simple as, you know, having them make the tanzaku is just a really nice way to connect with. Yeah, yay, you guys made them. I love that. I love that. It's just a simple thing, but it certainly acknowledges, you know, the tradition and the
Hanging.
custom. And it's something obviously anyone can do. So thank you.
Tony was showing his was hanging up like it was the instruction set. I would appreciate that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I
Carol,
love them.
yours
They're
is-
so great.
Carol is my hero. She's so colorful. Look at those. Oh, thank you. I see Susan. I saw Micah, Robin, and well, I almost called you Andy. Oh my goodness. It's been a long day. Ooh, digitalis. Oh, it says
Wow.
hope. I see hope. That's very nice.
Very nice.
I said if you can read the Google translated Japanese, then you can know what mine says.
I love telling this story. I've told it for or the Chinese version for Valentine's Day. And I put the art as that I use in the
Yeah.
dome as my virtual background. And in this story, they have kids.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, that's beautiful.
If anybody wants it, I'll put my email in the chat.
Well, that's it. If you want a copy of anything that we created, Patty and I'd be happy to share.
That was fun.
And thanks for sharing in the chat. That's awesome. Yeah,
We-
Susan, you might need to hold that up again. We might have to pin you because that was awesome. Let's see if I can pin her for everybody. Let's see. I don't know if it just
Wow.
pins
Oh, that's great.
and oh, look at you guys did that.
Wow,
That's beautiful.
that's so beautiful.
Who did that artwork? Is that yours?
No, I received this booklet from my sister-in-law, and it's a
Amazing.
Chinese version.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
When I was in Japan, I picked up the Japanese
Yay.
version.
Susan gets this A+ for extra credit.
I have a question. Elizabeth, how long have you been doing this? Have you done it once or 10 times or?
So the Japanese Festival of Tanabata I have been doing for about 7 years. The planetarium part of it just for a couple years, and this show I've only done twice. This one that we presented today, but I've only been in the planetarium for about I guess 2.5, 3, almost 3 years. So I said to Carrie and Kyle, I never thought when I was learning at my first training that I would actually be presenting at a conference. But yeah, I really love it. I'm just still learning a lot of the science part, but.
I met Elizabeth at her first one and I fell in love with her ideas and her too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I really like this because it has wide appeal. You can get family members who might not be into astronomy to attend because there's so much going on. And it's an annual thing, so it can become kind of a family tradition. And there are things there for people who maybe don't have kids with them. So this is a really great kind of event for a museum to do.
All of our planetarium shows are people aged 4 to as old as 80, 85. I mean, we don't do just school shows. So most of the programs that I do have to be something that would be of interest to any age. And you're right, Mark, because the appeal is so varied. I mean, some people are interested in it like, oh, this sounds like a cool new thing. Some people have, they served in the military or they have some connection in their past to Japanese culture, to the country of Japan. And it's just really interesting to have those conversations with people. And then they come away learning a little bit about astronomy too. And I usually get people that come to other shows that first come to Tanabata because it's sort of easing it in, easing the idea.
It's a gateway.
In some versions of the story, the couple has a couple of children before they're forced to be separate. And Altair has a couple of stars flanking it. I guess the dad got custody for most of the year.
That's a nice addition. Tony Smith put a question that I think we should answer live, Elizabeth. He asked, how do we go about getting the music and art created? And I can share my half because I'm the one who knew the artist. Jessica Schuckler actually was a student at my daughter's school and amazing artist, always has been. She actually did artwork for my planetarium when she was in 7th grade. She did the artwork for one of our in-house productions for our 3rd graders. And she just did that as part of her portfolio. So here when we had an opportunity to pay, it's not a lot of money, but it was nice to ask her, hey, we have some money to pay you. Would you be interested in doing some artwork? And Elizabeth, tell us about.
My daughter graduated with a degree in musical theater, and James was a student in the music program at her university, and somebody that I knew that way. And I think we both offered, Patty and I offered it to them as, here's a stipend and a way for you to build your portfolio. And so the thing that we ask if you were using any of this art or music in your programs is to just give them credit because it is their original work.
Krista asked if she's curious if there's ever been any issues with presenting something like this, kids saying other noises or being super loud or nobody participating. I don't think we're ever gonna, well, you've only done it twice. I've never had a problem with nobody participating, but yeah, I'm sure that there's somebody who wants to moo or fart or whatever. And
well, I mean,
just gassy cows, whatever,
Yeah, you guys did a great job. And I mean, there are some people in this group that can't keep it together. So I think if this group did okay, but when we did the show this year, we just asked people, which of these would you like, as opposed to, would you like something? So it set it up in the beginning that everyone was going to participate in some way. And some people took the candles because then they didn't have to do anything except turn them on. And that's fine.
I think it's hard to not get people to present in this or participate at this kind of thing because it's so easy. And it's not, what's the word? I bet even my daughter, who's doesn't like any attention, it doesn't center attention on any particular person. So I believe that this is the kind of thing that even introverts would be willing to participate in. So
you can kind of blend in the others. And I liked Elizabeth too in the beginning when we were all going moo. Let's have it be nice and short so we can continue with the story. I thought that was a good way to kind of note that.
I mean, there's really, the things that I did with the story, there's nothing really new. Anybody that's an educator, I mean, you use this kind of call and response all the time when you do storytelling to get people to really pay attention. But it's, it works, and it's a simple way to get through the story and have people participate. And like I said, what I found is that they're more invested in the story. So then when you start talking about the astronomy, they have a vested interest in understanding that too, because it kind of, in a way, decodes the story. And we continue to reinforce that the reason we have a planetarium in the Art Center is because we are interested in sharing the science that is so much a part of many of the stories and traditions of so many cultures. So, well, thank you guys so much for your support and great questions and all that.